Vilsack did in 2010 about putting 100,000 more farmers on the land. One of the biggest stumbling blocks is capital, access to capital. Access to land's big. I'm not going to talk about that necessarily today. But Mr. Clinton and his reversal of Stigall, this is what we saw. Assets less than 100 million. That's the big block, right? That's your small banks, used to be in your hometowns. It's where most farmers used to get their capital. Decline. Ronald Reagan through Clinton's Act. 1984 to 85, largest number of acquisitions and mergers in this country's history. At the same time, you saw that decline in bank institutions less than 100 million. Look at this growth in non-community banks. See that? Big red? Non-community banks. So the assets that those smaller banks held didn't get distributed evenly back out through your communities or our communities or your states. Those banks, those dollars, those assets got concentrated very heavily in the non-community banks that have no obligation at all to put that money back in. Every time a young farmer can't get the capital to stay on the farm, every time a banker picks one farmer over another on who's going to get the farm, you can thank Mr. Clinton and Mr. Reagan. Public policy. Policy made in the Capitol halls, your capital. Saw that slide before. What else did we get for all this? A million fewer farmers. I love this slide from Nebraska's Farmers Union, John Hanson. He's, as all of us, he's quite a warrior still fighting. This is the losses by sector. When I began farming pigs in Missouri, there were 62,000 pig farmers in the state. 62,000. We had a huge amount of feeder pigs came out of South Missouri. West Plains market, the Springfield market. Climate there is perfect for raising those baby pigs. We moved them around. A lot of them went to Illinois, Iowa, closer to the corn, a little cheaper to feed them out. Today, there's only 69,000 hog farmers left in America. Most of which, if you aren't under contract with a vertical integrator, you aren't pig farming. And most of them don't necessarily want to raise pigs that way. But the banker told them if you're going to keep farming or you're going to keep whatever, you're going to sign a contract with Mr. Cargill. At least that's the way it works in my neighborhood. Why? Because there's not even community banks. All those assets went to these people that really don't give a hoot whether we live out here in rural America or we don't. We put the trust back together. Wisconsin, I mentioned this. This is what's happening across America. This is July 25th, 2013. I said the 13th of July. I was wrong last one. That's 25th. To me, this said it all. I'm so worried about what's happening to our dairy industry in the leading dairy state of this country. I love Wisconsin. We talked about that last night. Beautiful state. Beautiful people. Great farmers. Care about their land and their animals. And this was the headline. Though Wisconsin's number of dairy cows continues to hold steady, yay! The state lost well over 600 dairy farm operations in the last year. USDA said about pigs, it's not that we're raising substantially more pigs in the country, it's just who and how. It's not that we got more dairy cows in Wisconsin, it's just who and how. 600 families off the land. Because public policy was adopted in your country's capital that guaranteed the demise of the American farmer. 1 million of us. 91% of the hog farm. This is what's replacing it. 600 families lose their gosh darn farms so that this can be called farming. This isn't farming for the farmer, for the worker, for the cow, or for the environment. This is an industry, just like all them pigs in a line. That's not farming. That's an industry that doesn't give a poop whether the farmer stays on the land, whether the rural economy stays, whether how the animal is treated, or what happens to the environment. Matter of fact, the worst day was when they quit calling me a pig farmer, and I know a lot of people say, well, who wants to be a pig farmer? I do. I'm proud of it. I don't want to be a pork producer. I raise pigs, not pork chops. Beef producers. Where's the cow? Where's the calf? That's where we went wrong when we let them start calling us by some meat at the grocery store. The consumer doesn't even know where it comes from. I had a lady call me. I live in a town of 11,000 people, right in the heart of agriculture. You would think, but you just know this, that you can't think this. Because what happened is she called me up and wanted to buy a pig. I said, yes, ma'am. I said, well, I can't. So I'm not USDA. I said, but we got these little plants not USDA. I can sell you a hog. You can call them and tell them what you want done with it. So that's what the law is. You got to call them. I'll sell you the pig, then you pay them to process. She goes, well, I just want all pork chops. 11,000 people in that town. They live in the heart of agriculture as far as Missouri is concerned, and they've lost it because we call ourselves pork producers. Mike Calicrate, a good friend of mine and president of OCM, Organization for Competitive Market, heard this presentation, and he bought me a box of hats that says, I'm not a pork producer, I'm a pig farmer. So I've been giving those out. That ain't farming.
That's sick.
290 million of these animals in the U.S. Time you eat an egg. We have our own chickens on our farm. We don't commercially raise eggs, but there's 4 families depend on them, and those chicken hens do pretty good for us. We raise our own meat birds. We're blessed. God's blessed us. We've got nice acreage, and my brother and I one day leaned on the side of a tractor and decided whether we was going to have to borrow another $1.5 million for new equipment. And we pretty soon decided that, putting these animals in these barns the way we were and buying all this equipment and neighbors going out, it really wasn't farming. I'm not suggesting that you all made wrong decisions. I'm just saying for Joe and Steve Maxwell. And so we stopped doing that, and we got set up for 20 acres. And we began to do things more intensely on those acres. 290 million. Cattle production is one of the last of cattle numbers are down. We're going to feed the world. Feed the world. We have the lowest number of cow calves that we had since 1952. God loves us. We're feeding the world. Not more dairy cows, just fewer dairy farmers. We're feeding the world. 130,000 animals live in that space in Yuma, Colorado. I've been there. Dr. Tom Parks lives not far from there, a good friend of mine, veterinarian. He has a grass-fed beef operation. And I went up to stay with him, and he took me by that place. At times the wind blows wrong, you got to put a mask on to walk around town because of all the. But there were 130,000 of those animals just outside of town. Now the beef industry, you know what's happening to your small, middle-sized feedlots. Missouri is still the second largest cow-calf operating state, and we're scared to death because, we didn't think that it could get controlled like pigs and chickens have been. If they take out all of the buyers and all that's left is the Brazilians, it's a challenge for us, the cow-calf operators. ABS operation. Brazil has the most beef in the U.S. China has the most pork. We're feeding the world. Our public policy is feeding the world. What happened to our economy? This is a study, I pulled it out, dairy. I kind of hung on dairy. Two counties, Yates County, St. Lawrence County. St. Lawrence County's rules and regulations, and I know I get in trouble with that when I start talking about animal welfare issues and the environment. But Yates County had stricter regulations on environment than St. Lawrence County. St. Lawrence County, over this period of time, 1982-2007, began to displace farmers and increase the number of cows within that county. The end result of this is that total personal income in Yates County went up 13% more than it did in the county that has, but it's supposed to be economic development, right? I mean, that's why we give a lot of these things special setback provisions. Or in Missouri, we gave Smithfield the opportunity to own the Chinese corporation now, chance to own 50,000 acres of Missouri's farmland and poop up that whole 3-county area in North Missouri. We gave them special privileges over other farmers because it's economic development. No, it's not. There's not a study out there. Go to Food and Water Watch website and pull up the study. They've gone back over 40 years to look at it. The non-farm establishments increased by 30% in Yates County. That would be your local retailers, businesses, those things. It only increased by 6% at the same time in St. Lawrence County. Real median household income actually went down in St. Lawrence County during that time period. It went up in Yates County. There's study after study. I just had to pull this one because it's dairy, and it's also the home state of Governor Teddy Roosevelt. I thought that was kind of unique, the trust buster for the United States. Iowa hog farms, one 500-head operation. The local study came out and showed it 33,500. One 5,000-head hog operation equals 233,000 local spending per hog farm. And of course, if you had 500, you still have 5,000 hogs, but you have that much increased wealth in those counties in Iowa. Study after study in Iowa indicates that the concentration that's gone on in Iowa has just been devastating to their rural economy. Joe Logan, just elected president of Ohio Farmers Union, he and another team that I work with are working hard on this problem. The algae bloom in Lake Erie, polluting the drinking water. The runoff from the confinements that have been built there is now polluting the drinking water. The Farmers Union up there is taking a stand to increase the phosphorus testing and studies for application on the manure in order to try to overcome that. Joe's been heading that up, and he just left one job that he was working with some of the environmental folks. That's the price paid for this. Not that we're raising more pigs, it's just we've concentrated, it's just 2 and how we're doing. It's not that we're raising more calves, it's just 2 and how. And rather down the line. To me, this is our real enemy. This is NCBA. Now, I'm biased against NCBA because they sued me on my law in Missouri and tied me up for 4 years in the courts. So I am biased against them. I quit being a member of the Cattlemen's Association because of it. But this is a quote from the NCBA president this last week. This is prior to the vote in the House on the Farm Bill, after it came out of conference. We are finding a lot of support in the halls of Congress for repealing this if this is not fixed. There's a narrow window where this issue, mandatory country of origin labeling and GIPSA, oh God, the horrible evils, language could both be addressed in this Farm Bill, and they need to take advantage of it. Because if they don't, they being the Congress, we, the Cattlemen's Association, we will literally use all our resources to kill this bill. That is not Americans, farmers, and ranchers' friend. That's somebody that takes our checkoff dollars, claims they've got a firewall, and goes to Congress to lobby against our interest. Headline yesterday, meat packers industry groups seek repeal of labeling law. Remember Upton Sinclair? The trust. The Meat Packers Trust. You want to see who they are today? Wichita Eagle printed this. This is not some East Coast, West Coast liberal damn speaker here. This is fact. This is Wichita, Kansas, cow country. The American Meat Institute, National Cattlemen's Beef Association, National Chicken Council, National Pork Producers, got $5 chicken dollars, National Turkey Federation, and North American Meat Association, as well as big meat packers, lobbied to have the new Farm Bill change the country of origin labeling law. Worked against the Farmers Union. It goes on to say in this that they're now seeking legislation just to repeal them all. That's going to be, they couldn't win the Farm Bill, they're just going to go in. Repeal it. That's what the article said this morning. A good friend of mine, Bill Heffernan, a rural sociologist, retired out of the University of Missouri, I think captured the real problem that we have. The centralized food system that continues to emerge was never voted on by the people of this country, or for that matter, the people of the world. It is the product of deliberate decisions made by very few powerful human actors. I just put their associations on the slide before. This is not the only system that could emerge. It doesn't have to be this way. Is it not time to ask some critical questions about our food system and about what is in the best interest of this and the future of generations? I think Bill's dead on. I think it's our turn. Where are we going? What does our future look like? I think we have to take a stand. One issue that we have, when we won the other time and busted up the trust, there were 30% of us made up the U.S. population. Today, all of agriculture, farmers and ranchers, is less than 1% of the population. It's hard for less than 1%. It's hard for less than 1% to go into Congress and lobby against the influence in those halls. Not that the Farmers Union didn't do well and others didn't come together. We at least preserved GIPSA and the Cool. We kicked King out. We had some real positive things, so I'm not suggesting we didn't do okay. But these policy changes since the 80s, through the Clinton administration, have driven 1 million of us off the land. There's getting to be fewer and fewer of us. I think the thing that we have to begin to do is to think through who can be our partners. Who should we be collaborating with? The next farm bill I would propose shouldn't be a farm bill, it ought to be a food bill. Just like Bill Heffernan says, we need to be discussing the food system. As long as it's just about us farmers, one, we get kicked around for all the subsidies and blamed for everything, for darn sakes. Two, those people beating us around are our consumers, people that buy our products, and they don't have a clue who we are. Between now and the next round, we ought to be talking about the food bill, and we ought to be reaching out to those consumers. We ought to be building a dialogue with those that buy our products. I have a bumper sticker on one of our old trucks that says, everyone is in agriculture, we all eat. I thought about that here about 7, 8 months ago. It dawned on me I needed to actually put that into practice. Because I've kept being selfish about who had a right to have an opinion about agriculture. I thought it was only my right as a farmer, American farmer, it's my right. No, it's not. It's the right of everybody that eats. That bumper sticker is exactly right. Everybody that eats has a right to have an opinion what they put in their bodies and who raises it, how it's raised, and what it does to future generations and what it does to their drinking water. I think the best thing that we can do to get our critical mass organized and to advocate for our sustainability as American farmers, not as world industries. China controls most of the pork. 26% of the pork chops in the world are now controlled by China. I don't know what the number is, JBS now. I know they're the majority beef industry. We in agriculture need to quit lending those corporations, international multi-corporations, our faces and our names, lending them credibility to the consumers. And we need to be the ones sitting at the table with the animal welfare advocates, the environmentalists. Let them know us. Get to know us. We're what they want in American agriculture. We're not going, I know we'll fight, and God love us, I'll saddle up, pull pistols right along with you and charge them again at the Capitol. Until I die, I won't quit fighting. I'm one of those guys in my community I've been marginalized because I didn't get bigger. I raised my hogs different than the other boys, and everybody wants to say, oh, you're cute, or you're old-fashioned, or you're, whatever. I talk about non-GMO feed for my pigs, and they pat me on the head and tell me it'll never work. I'll take the criticism. I'll do the fighting. But the fact is, if all of us mustered today, mounted our horses and pulled our pistols and charged that Capitol, we will die. There's not enough of us left to charge that Capitol. For our own future and the future of America's farmers and ranchers, we need to reach out to consumers. Organizations like Food and Water Watch, like the Humane Society of the United States. I work with them, Wendell, a good friend of mine, Wes Schumeyer, worked with international folks on the environment. If we do that in the time we get to the next farm bill, we will be able to have a sustainable agricultural policy, and it's up to us to make that difference. If we don't, there'll be less and less in this meeting and other meetings around the country in the Farmers Union, because there's getting to be less and less of us that are good stewards of the land and the animal and true American farmers. Soon there's going to be a book come out kind of tell our story of what's happened in the country. It's The Meat Racket. It's authored by Chris Leonard. He's a former AP business reporter from St. Louis, did the Midwest region, Illinois. You may have seen that name. It printed in a lot of your newspapers over time. He's written a book called The Meat Racket. It'll be coming out this month. I suggest you take a read on it and we've got to figure out how we can go forward. There's going to be an announcement on March the 13th in Washington, D.C., and I think the National Farmers Union has been invited by the New America Foundation, by the way. I'm going to be part of it. Thank you all very much. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yes.
In 1996, was you involved a little bit whenever they allowed the mercantile to go to cash delivery on the hog contracts?
Yes.
What was your take on that? Why it happened?
Oh, why it happened? I don't know. Well,
I know why it happened.
well, why? I don't know.
There was one gentleman that was on the mercantile board that was from St. Louis area, did not show up to vote, and he was paid off by your friendly company up there with initials Cargill.
Yeah. I can believe that.
And they was wanting to get control of the market, them in Smithfield was, or China like you said, was trying to get a control of the hog farms by eliminating them and going to like the feeder cattle did on a cash settlement.
Oh.
And as far as I'm concerned, I've been trading commodities since I was 6 years old, filling out a chart book for my dad since 1966. And I can remember the limit moves up and down, when they was 30, I think there was 52 days down or something like that in the 70s when they put the cattle embargo on and stuff like that. I remember all them. I was only 10, 12 years old, 13 years old, but I remember. But that's what the deal was. The one guy got paid off not to show up.
Well,
and
I'll research that and add it to my comments. I adamantly opposed it, but I'd not ever heard the.
Because in trying to think what month that was. It was like June of '96.